my name is Regina, and welcome to this Rosemon Burst Mode deck profile. This deck has gone through a few modifications and changes, and will continue to do so as locals and events happen, but this is the current iteration of the deck and my favorite so far. As a heads up, this will look a lot like some Bloomlord decks out there, as there is a lot of synergy between how Bloomlord and Rosemon work together, but I do want to emphasize that this is more of a Rosemon deck with some Bloomlord support, so let's get into it. We're going to start out with the eggs. We are running 4 Cocomon from EX4. The inherit on this is amazing, as whenever a Digimon of yours is suspended by an effect, you draw one. And you'll be doing a lot of that as you're suspending your own Digimon for either reduced evolution costs or to cheat out some free Digimon onto the field. As you can see, there are only 4 eggs here, and I haven't actually considered adding a 5th egg simply because the draw is the best part of this deck. Rosemon works like a combo deck, so you'll want to draw your pieces sooner rather than later, and the Cocomon really helps you accelerate that. If there is a 5th egg out there, I'm open to it. I have not found one yet that really fits this deck for me. Going into our rookies, there are 14 rookies. It seems a little high, but again, we're doing a lot of searching, and we are using a good chunk of them to search out parts of the deck that we might need. We're going to start off with the 4 Palmon from BT10. These ones are going to be an on-play effect. You look at the top 4 of your cards. You get to pick up 1 card with vegetation or plant in its traits, and then 1 card with fairy in its traits, and the rest will go to the bottom of your deck. The really good thing about this Palmon is you pick up a majority of the deck off of the search, including your Rosemon burst modes. There's usually a high chance that you can get 2 hits off of the search, and even if you only get 1, that is 1 step closer to a stack to build. So, still really nice. If for some reason you get 0 hits off of there, I'm very sorry. It's possible. It's not a 0 chance, right? Next is the 4 Lalamon from BT13. These are another good search piece, and while it does search 1 less card than Palmon, you are able to pick up a Yoshino off of the search. They do search off the same exact traits as Palmon does. That is the vegetation, the plant, and the fairy. And while you're trying to decide this, the trickiest part of these searches is, do you search with Palmon first or do you search with Lalamon first? And that is a question you have to answer when you open up your hand. The inherit does come into play for Lalamon because while you have a green tamer in play, the next time this Digimon would Digivolve, you can reduce it by 1, which is something that Palmon doesn't have. So really the Lalamon is sort of a go-to in the back if you already have a Yoshino in your hand. If you don't, the choice is up to you between either one of these 2 to search. Next up is going to be the 3 Palmon from BT9. The Palmon here reads, all turns, players can't play Digimon by effects. As a heads up, this does also affect you and your deck, so please keep that in mind. But the Palmon are actually in this deck as a way to either stop the Green Mirror or, more importantly, the Royal Knights deck. The Royal Knights do play by effects when Omnimon comes out into the field, so this does sort of put a hard stop to it. Just keep in mind as well that the DP of Palmon is relatively low, so you are absolutely just wiped out by any Marcuses that come into the field. However, the Palmon on the field still forces your opponents to have those cards in their hand or have a way to get rid of them. And if they can't, one bird stops a plethora of Royal Knights out there, and it's very nice to see that happen. Last but not least, we are going with the 3 Cherrymon from BT12. I am promising you right now, I am working on getting that last anniversary box topper Cherrymon. While memory tamers are coming back around in this format, there's still a lot of decks out there that run memory boosts, or, in Mirage Galgamon's case, decks that trigger memory gain from Digimon. Cherrymon's a great way to stop that, and it feels like a mainstay in the deck despite the fact that you can't pick it up from either Palmon or from Lalamon. But, like Palmon, your opponent has to deal with a problem or else they don't gain that memory, and that's always a plus for us. So those are your rookies. Heading into our level 4s, we are running 10 of them in this deck. We're starting off with the 4 Sunflowmon from BT10, which would look really familiar to a lot of you who might have played that format with Bloomlord. It reads, when Digivolving, by suspending one of your green Digimon, you can play a Digimon card with vegetation, plant, or fairy in one of its traits and 3000 DP or less from your hand without paying its pay cost. So, you can do a couple of things with this, right? You can either cheat out another relatively low cost level 4, or you can play any of these rookies out there. You can get extra searches, you can stop your opponent from playing effects, or you can just stop them from gaining memory. Essentially, this one is just a good way to get an extra body out onto your field. The inherit also works the same way that Cocomon does, that when another Digimon you have is suspended by an effect, you draw one. And then next up is, might look a little bit familiar to you. It is another forest Sunflowmon. We're building a garden out here. This one, though, is from BT13. This Sunflowmon is a main effect that reads, by suspending this Digimon, one of your Digimon may Digivolve into a Digimon card with Fairy in its traits for the Digivolution cost. When it would Digivolve by this effect, you reduce the Digivolution by 2. So the nice thing about this, you can play it from the old Sunflowmon, suspend this, and then make your next evolution something into a 1 cost potentially. It makes so many of your 5s and 6s cost 2 less to evolve. Notably, though, it does say that you evolve into something with Fairy in the traits, so keep a close eye on that, because that does mean that the level 5s you have with vegetation or other typings in there will not be affected by this cost reduction. The last 2 level 4s rounding out our count here are going to be RedVegiemon from BT10 and regular Vegiemon from BT11. So RedVegiemon is in there just for the cheap evolution cost. If your opponent does not have a memory tamer out on the field, you can evo this into for 1, and it's a really good way to just keep them from having any additional memory to work with. Also, the RedVegiemon is a 3-drop level 4, which is also really nice, because if you don't have a rookie or you played out your rookie and just wanted to keep playing extra stuff out there, you can have an extra body for a cost, the same cost as all of your rookies actually. The Vegiemon here is start of your turn, you gain a memory. It's really just there, so on the off chance that I happen to have it out on the field, I get an extra memory for that turn, and honestly, 1 memory makes such a difference even with a memory tamer. So that's it for our level 4s. Going to our level 5s, the count rounds out at 9 of those level 5s, starting with for Lilamon from BT13. What does it do? Well, when Digivolving, it lets you play a Yoshino for free. And honestly, there's not much else to say off of that. Free memory tamer just from evoing, always fantastic, right? Even if you already have another Yoshino in play, having an additional one is really nice just because of what this new Yoshino can do. Lalamon's Inherit does read, though, that when your opponent has a suspended Digimon in play, it gets security attack +1. The more security checks you can clear, the better. Always really great. So, next up is going to be one Cherrymon from BT10. The Digisorption here means that you can evo into this level 5 for a cost of 1, but you can also redirect attacks to suspended Digimon, and you're going to have a lot of suspended Digimon. So despite the fact that you might have a lot of low DP suspended Digimon, Cherrymon can at least force the attack somewhere else, which can cause your opponent to think their choices a little bit more, right? Nobody wants to swing and then have Cherrymon say, hey, you can direct it here instead, and then all of a sudden their game plan's kind of thrown out of whack. Next up is going to be one Blossomon from BT3. The free evolution with Digisorption is just really helpful to turbo into your high end. Digisorption for 3, so you get a free level 5. It's already you could either suspend this or suspend something else. You get a bunch of triggers either from the Kokomon here or the Sunflow from over here. And it's just really nice to be able to not have to spend any memory to go ahead and go into that level 5. And then we've got an Argomon from BT2. If you can unsuspend with this and then evo on top of it and swing with an attack, that's a free search, since the Inherit lets you play a level 3 Digimon from your hand. A level 3 green Digimon from your hand, suspend without paying the memory cost. Those are searches. That's a can't play by effects, or that's a memory choker, right? That's amazing for this art. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, that's still fine. You are still able to at least swing with a level 6 with Argomon. And last but not least, the last 2 level 5s in this are kind of flexible depending on your playstyle. I'm running 2 of the old BT4 Lalamons because the chance to be able to Digiburst and force your opponent to suspend a Digimon is really nice. Sometimes you don't have to worry about the inherits that you have underneath it for the 4s or for the 3s or the 4s. As you can see, there's very few of those in the level 3s. And this does mean that you don't have to worry about any blockers that might be out there, as there are some blockers that are making a comeback in this format. So it's really nice. And the Inherit says when attacking, if you have your Tamer in play, you can suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. So even then, you don't have to worry about the Digiburst. This is a very flexible spot, though, as I was considering between Cherrymon from BT10 before I decided that Lilamon would actually fit my goal better here. And now we are going into the level 6s. So we are starting off with 4 Rosemon from BT13. I Love this card so much. The when Digivolving skill allows you to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers and allows this Digimon to unsuspend. However, when that happens, you trigger the second skill, which is alterns once per turn. When an opponent's Digimon or Tamer becomes suspended, you suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers. So really, you're getting the price of 2 suspensions for 1 evolution with Rosemon. And since you're suspending a lot of your low-end Digimon to sort of cheapen this evolution cost, you're in a spot where you can get this evolution for free, and then force your opponents to suspend things, and then you can still swing with this 11k level 6. Overall, it's a nice way to actually just sort of start studying the board or suspending the board early on for a potential burst mode. And we've talked about this a couple of times. This is sort of a Bloomlord-ish deck. So really, what is this deck without 2 Bloomlord? The Bloomlord from BT10. I'm only writing this as a 2 because it is not the focus of the deck, but oh my god, does it feel great to have when you have it in your hand. If you're able to flood your board properly, Bloomlord will do what it does best, which is honestly, just clear your opponent's security. And it's a very nice mainstay, especially when you're cheating out so many cards with all of this. The last level 6 that I have in this deck is a bit of a cheeky sort of tech ad. It's actually the Leopardmon from BT13. This deck does not run any blockers, unless we're counting the Cherrymon redirect. But Leopardmon lets you play a green body for a reduced cost of 4, and while the bodies you play aren't super high DP, they become blockers. So that's really nice to have, especially when your back is against the wall and you're thinking to yourself, I need to be able to block things so I don't lose to my opponent on here. You don't always have to suspend your things to get evolutions or Digimon on the field. You go into this, you can play something for free, and all of a sudden they're blockers, right? And you do have other ways of cheating out Digimon onto the field, so you can trigger this at least every single turn, right? Every time you play a Digimon, then you can go ahead, like whenever you play another Digimon, all of your green and or Royal Nitrate Digimon gain blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. Sure, you might, say, hey, this Lalamon is a 1k blocker, but sometimes that makes all of the difference. And now we are on to the level 7s. There are 4 level 7s in here. The jewel of this garden of plant, fairy, and vegetation cards is Rosemon Burst Mode. Notice I am only running 3 of them. The ultimate goal is to get into this burst mode. It suspends 1 Tamer and 1 Digimon on your when you evo into it, but nothing on your opponent's side will unsuspend for the turn. You can really honestly think of burst mode as a mini Quartzmon. The reason I call it a mini Quartzmon is it only lasts for 1 turn, but sometimes that's enough. If you can stun your opponent's board and they have a lot of unsuspend skills, they won't get those from the Rosemon. The one attacking trait for Rosemon Burst Mode is also much easier to meet, as you trash 1 security for every 2 of their suspended Digimon and or Tamers. I consider Burst Mode both to be a game ender and honestly a 1-turn chance to get back into the game. It is really great and fantastic. If there is a way that you can get the Burst Mode without having to trash it, like for the Burst Evolution, all the better, right? But even then, ideally, you want the burst mode obviously on top of the Rosemon, because the Rosemon will get those triggers again to be able to suspend more of your opponent's things on their side of the field. So I did say that there are 4 level 7s, and since 3 of them are Rosemon, we might as well talk about the one that is sort of like the mini version of it, right? It is that Quartzmon. So Quartzmon from BT12 is the last level 7 of here. Honestly, it feels too powerful to not include into this deck. You play out so many Digimon that when you're evolving, you'll gain back a lot of that memory. Of course, it's not searchable by anything in this deck, so you really have to hope that you don't find yourself in a place where you're hoping for that one-of copy. But this is very much more of a defensive play than anything else. If Rosemon Burst Mode is a more aggressive play, Quartzmon is one of those where you are biding your time slowly and either forcing your opponent to play cards down, play Tamers down, and then you just suspend it on when you attack, and you trash the security for every 5 as opposed to every 2 as you do with Burst Mode. So, really, either one of these level 7s is not terrible to go into. Of course, ideally we want to go into these Burst Modes, and Quartzmon is more of a defensive level 7. So, that's really it for the Digimon. However, there are a couple last pieces of the deck. We are looking at 4 Tamers. You're looking at 4 Yoshino from BT13. This is a memory Tamer, and it's a evolution reduction. So why are you playing this deck if you're not playing 4 of her, right? We're looking at her, and she says, start of your turn, you are at 3 memory, and your turn, when one of your Digimon digivolves into a Digimon with vegetation, plant, or fairy in one of its traits, you can suspend her to gain 1 memory. So, very important, because the fact that it says gain and not reduce means that you're avoiding any of those cards that says you can't reduce Digivolution costs, and that distinction is very important with Yoshino. I'm also running 1 Mimi Tachikawa from BT1. I will still argue that this is one of the single best green tamers out there. So, why? Because when you can suspend her when you have a green level 5 out on the field and bring out a Digimon from the back or hatch a new egg, sometimes an extra chance to Evo or that last swing makes all of the difference in the world. However, I will say that this is a very negotiable spot. There are some other tamers that you could think about running. I toyed with the idea of running the old Yoshino just because it's a better target for the burst evolution. And I'm also toying with the idea of running the dual tamer of Izzy and Mimi, but just for some shenanigans. I still think I will stick with this one just because I love the fact that I can bring out another body or I can hatch into another egg. And last but not least, the only option card in this deck, and card number 50, Hidden Potential Discovered. This card is one of my personal favorite cards, and I've definitely had games where I'll use it to evolve into burst mode for free, and it is such a good feeling. It can be a game ender when used in the right spot, and honestly, every time I use this card, I think to myself, I understand why they limited this card. Of course, it feels a little bit redundant because you do have so many cost reductions and digisorptions in the deck, but Hidden Potential Discovered is one of those cards that when I draw it, it makes the difference in between me saying I am out of this game to, oh, I have a chance. So there you go. That's why it's in there. And hey, that's it for the deck. The goal really is to get into your burst modes as fast as possible, and with the right hand, it's actually possible to do that within 2 to 3 turns, and sometimes it's really difficult for your opponent to get past that. This Rosemon stunning for 1 turn really puts a damper in your opponent's plans. There are some flexible spots. As you can see from this deck, there is no hard removal, which can really hurt you if you don't find your pieces and your opponent is able to control the deck. But honestly, the deck plays quick, and the goal is to just turbo, right? So honestly, the removal is sort of negotiable. It's up to you and how you want to play that. But I've been having a lot of fun with this build. It might change in a couple of weeks. It might not. This might be the final iteration. There's always more testing to be done because Digimon is a game that, just like the pieces that you use, constantly evolves. So hopefully you enjoyed it. That's it for me. And again, thank you for checking out this deck profile. So bye-bye.